The girl you just saw in that video was 20-year-old Maria Kovalchuk. And recently Maria went missing in Dubai for a week and was found days later on a roadside in Dubai with a broken spine and other broken limbs. So Maria is an OF model, and a lot of people have spoken out after this saying that they believe that Maria was invited to an elite party in Dubai. There have been lots of women that have shared their stories about these parties online, and they are incredibly disturbing stories to say the least. The most disturbing of these parties are called porta potty parties. And essentially, women are flown into the country from all across the world. They are paid exorbitant amounts of money, and these very rich men, the elite members of society in the UAE, are allowed to defecate and urinate on these women, in these women, and even in their mouths. Other women who have witnessed some of these parties and attended them claim that girls are sometimes strung up on meat hooks, literally like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they claim that then the women are beaten while they're hanging on the hook for the gratification of the abuser. Before she went missing, Maria told her mother that she had been staying with two men that were involved in the modeling business. But according to officials in Dubai, they claim that Maria stumbled into an empty construction site and somehow fell from a piece of construction equipment, which we all obviously know is not true. I'm going to go into these parties in more detail on another post, but this is so disturbing.
I'm honor to the Apostle of Great Most of Peace Citation Hope Forward. And I may title this lesson, You Porta Potty Models of Doom. And of course, as you see in the video, you have it to where, these women that happen to do OnlyFans, and they even happen to get into the porn industry, doing all these debauchery, all these filthy sexual acts. They do all type of heinous acts for money, for clout and fame, and this is their way of gaining the world, and of course they're losing their soul in the process of doing it. And for the most part, it's very degrading and it's humiliating, and they're doing all this for a corruptible crown. Because at the end of the day, it's like all of this ain't gonna follow you in the kingdom of heaven. All this is just going to be left on this side. And she seemed like she could be an Edomite, and if she is, for the most part, do whatever you gotta do, because the Lord ain't dealing with no Edomites or heathens anyway. But for being an Israelite and engaging in these type of heinous acts, you just have your head down in shame in the kingdom eventually. And what these women do that's in those industries, in that porn industry, to make extra money, they get flown over to Dubai, and from there, like the man was mentioned in the video, they do this thing where they become a porta potty escort, which of course they will get pissed on and shitted on in their mouth, even not only on their bodies but even inside their mouth, and they have to eat it, and even if they vomit, they still have to consume the vomit as well. And there was one, I think it was a Nigerian woman or so, that she was a porta potty escort in Dubai, and I believe from what the video was mentioning one time, from when I was watching it, it mentioned about how she had to eat shit for 3 days within a week. So she had to do it like each day for 3 times each day for 7 days within that week, eating feces. And then she ended up getting the whole sickness. And yeah, man, she was offered I believe $14,000 just for for doing that filthy act, you know. And then eventually she was crying out for help and all that stuff, and, you know, regretting what she did. You know, it's been a little minute since I watched that video, but, you know, it goes to show you that selling your soul for money is really just not worth it. Because you just do anything filthy, and just for a couple thousands of dollars, you already see inflation is going up. Everything around you is increasing in price. It's like you doing all this to sell your soul. You're going to realize in the end it's not even worth it. Especially if you're an Israelite, you know. You're going to really get into the kingdom of heaven. And you're going to get pretty much like infinite wealth in that point. And then you're going to look back at all those times that you did those wickedness. And you're going to really, you know, look back at it and ask yourself, was it really worth it? You know, but when we bring out some scripture a little bit, makes us edifying. It says in Ecclesiastes chapter 10 verse 9, it says, why is earth and ashes proud? There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man, for such an one setteth his own soul to sale, because while he liveth he casteth away his bowels. Right. And yeah, the most wicked person is a covetous person, a person that, you know, desires to have, you know, something that another person has, you know, somebody that, you know, is willing to even sell their soul to get certain things. Because you gotta look at it this way, people that do those things, they do have a wicked heart, you know, and they're not gonna patiently wait and do things the right way to making wealth. That they will do something, even if it is defiling to their spirit, even if it's something that's immoral, you know, unethical, just to, you know, get access to a certain amount of wealth. You see, that's how wicked some people really are, you know. And you best believe those women that go out to the boy, you know, that these Instagram, OnlyFans models, you know, Twitter models as well, they pretty much, you know, have multiple social media accounts, you know, just to get more social media clout, just to get more, you know, traffic to their, you know, to their websites where they actually make merchandise and things of that nature, where they actually are making a lot of views on their content and all that shit. So, you know, the crazy thing is, it's like they will look down on average men, because you got men that will pretty much you know, glorify them, and you got men that will go as far as sending them gifts, sending them money, sending them all type of you know, letters in the mail, or DMing them and things of that nature. You see, you got a lot of guys in that simp like spirit that would pretty much worship these bitches. But look what those men, those elites in the UAE, look what they're doing to those women that are considered as you know, porn stars or whatever, you know, their title is, you know, those Instagram OnlyFans models. Look what they're doing to them. You know, they're doing all type of defiled acts to them. They even have them, forcing them to do bestiality with a camel, even making a camel piss and shit on them. You see, and that's probably just the tip of the iceberg of what they're exposing. What happens to those porta potties is probably more. They even mentioned that they're into the BDSM, which is the you know, that sadomasochism type of thing where they, you know, pretty much torture these women. It's crazy. I didn't even know they put them on a meat hook and do all that type of crazy shit. And then these bitches come over here and back to the country where they came from, and they flexing with all these nice apparel, designer clothing, driving Beamers, driving Maseratis, or they drive all these nice luxurious fancy sport cars, or these even the Hellcat as well, thinking that they the shit. And then they of course look down on the average hardworking man, or looking down on men that may not have the same access to the wealth that they have, and they think that they're better than them. And this is 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 9. It says, "But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which draw men into destruction and perdition." And that's one of the hurtful lusts that would draw you into perdition, doing these type of heinous acts, these type of filthy, nasty, defiled acts, to pretty much get access to the wealth that you always wanted. And this thing has been going on for a few years, where they get exposed for going over to the boy and doing these filthy acts for money. And you see, and the same thing goes for, like, even in the porn industry, they got to do things that are against their moral code, and they have to do everything that is written in the contract in order for them to get paid. Everything that they've that they're looking to get paid for. You see, and these are the same women that think that cooking and cleaning and serving your man, they think that's a stressful thing. But last time I checked, that's something that aligns with your nature, with the nature of a woman, and that's what the Most High has made a woman to do. Not to be in the porn industry, not to be a fucking model, being exposed to the world, exposing your body to the world, and allowing other men to pretty much violate you, sexually, allowing other men to spread their body fluids on you, and then you play in the field and things of that nature. That's really oppression right there. The fact that you sign a contract to where now whatever industry that you're working for, that they have a control over your body, and if you want to get paid, however, you agree to the terms and the conditions of doing whatever they tell you to do, that you have to abide by it in order to get paid, the amount that you're looking forward to get paid for. That's selling yourself very cheap. And you might not think that way because you feel like you're getting access to a certain amount of wealth. So, it says in verse 10, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." And yeah, I know these women that's into those things, they eventually have to do drugs. They have to even just try to do whatever possible to keep their mind in check, because I know deep down they're reflecting on all the shit that they do for the money. And it's really humiliating. And the fact that whatever goes on the internet, it stays there forever, as they say. So even if those things get removed from the internet, you got people to where they could save it on their hard drives as well. And you best believe you got guys out there that would cherish those videos on their hard drives. You got some other type of weirdos out there. So, and it says in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 6, it says, "But she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth." And a woman living in pleasure, of course, is her being able to go on a shopping spree, her being able to pretty much explore, travel the world, you know. And of course, they do these things, as a way to, it's like a therapy for them. So they don't even really care about like the filthy shit they have to do in order to achieve, that luxurious lifestyle. And let me see, I'll start at let me skip down to verse 10. It says, 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 10, well reported of for good works, if she have brought up children, if she have lodged strangers, if she have washed the saints' feet, if she have relieved the afflicted, if she have diligently followed every good work. But the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun to wax wanton against Hamashiach, they will marry, having damnation, because they cast off their first faith. And withal they learn to be idle, wander about from house to house, and not only idle, but tattlers and busybodies, speaking things which they ought not. I will therefore that the younger woman marry, bear children, guard the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some are already turned aside after Satan. Yeah, so that goes to show you right there that that's pretty much the the mindset of the average woman, of course, that they ran along with everything that this devil Esau has pretty much told them to do, and all the shit that Esau has pretty much put in their minds, that they're gonna go along with it, and they're not really gonna care about the wickedness that they do, because of course Esau says it's okay, the government legalizes it, so they figure fuck it, and plus it grants them a luxurious lifestyle, so they think nothing wrong of it. And they don't understand that they're being deceived and being swallowed by the serpent. And realistically, this woman that was into that shit, of course she was like in her early 20s or so, and that's usually that's a young age, and in your youth, that's the time you're supposed to be married, and that's the best time. Well, realistically, the best time for a woman to get married is really, when she has a period, of course, and typically that would, in the ancient world, it was at the age of 12, and usually I would say like around that age, or even high school, wasn't really bad for a woman to get married at that time, but instead, of course, Esau has it to where it's declared that women that are in those ages or so, that's that young, he would rather them go through a whole school system, a co-ed school system at that, playing the field, getting ran through, and eventually once they reach a certain age in their late teens, that some of them will go as far as becoming a porn star, so getting into that industry, and that of course will defile a woman, because in the years of your youth, you're supposed to be given into marriage, because your body was designed for that. It wasn't designed to be a whore, getting blasted on by multiple men and going to all these defiled sex parties and or these orgy parties, and having all type of fun and doing all type of heinous acts and debauchery. That's completely going off. And then you have a lot of women that look at that like it's honoring and things of that nature, which that's really a shame. And I know deep down they feel humiliated, and a lot of the times, of course, how they deflect their anger and humiliation, of course, the way they felt doing those things, they deflected on treating other guys like shit that have nothing to do with whatever they did, to making that that money that they always desire to make. You see? Yeah. And it's gonna come to a point in time where, you women seem to, be interested in doing these things. And even though it may seem a little overwhelming from the reports, especially with how this bitch got, left for dead and got her spine broken, and, whatever the report mentioned, how she got violated and left out on the road like that. Just how much more in the time of Jacob's trouble, when you women get trodden down like the mire of the streets, as it tells you in Micah the 7th chapter verse 10. Yeah, it's not going to be a joke at that time. And like Elder Malcolm always says, like, that cock carousel that you like to, ride, that shit gonna take you for a journey. It's gonna have you on overdrive, right? And the man in the video mentioned something about how it's like a scene coming from Texas Chainsaw Massacre where these bitches will get put on a meat hook. You're gonna have a lot of crazy ass men that's gonna be influenced by those horror movies like that. That's gonna actually do some crazy shit to you women. For putting them on child support. Fucking with their assets, like making them lose their homes, making them, even get their license revoked, and all type of, punishments that happen to those men if they don't, pay the alimony payments or the child support payments, if they don't make timely payments. You see, those men, they're gonna come for you women, and they're gonna do all type of crazy shit to you women. And if you women are very diligent to doing all those debauchery acts in the porn industry, how much more when you have to do all type of, defiled acts in the time of Jacob's trouble, where you ain't gonna get paid to do it. You're gonna be trafficked against your will and forced to do things just to survive. And the scriptures say, of course, you're gonna seek death early, and you're not gonna be able to find it, because the Lord gonna keep that spirit on you to make sure that you suffer. And even if He gives you a quick death, He could always, put that spirit back in your body, or He can make you come back as a baby to suffer in Jacob's trouble. That's the terror of the Heavenly Father. So yeah, with that, who may listen and find that to give all glory, praise, and honor to our now Yahweh, Bashem, Shamalak, Yasharahla, Bashem, Hakadash, the bonus of Apostle, Elsbury, Milson, peace, out, teaching, hopeful, election,